I say the name Clinton or Bush, George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton, those are easily recognizable names. I mean, most people know those names. But when I mention Ross Perot, I'm sure many of you don't know who that is. So my goal is at the end of this speech, you guys are going to know who Ross Perot is and what his impact was on the 1990s. He did several things. This is what interests me. The reason I did him is because he did several things and he held a position of his own that differed from the majority. Honestly, I really didn't know much about Ross Perot. I had no idea there was even a candidate, another candidate in the 1990s with George Bush and Bill Clinton. I had no idea. I actually just heard about this guy and I thought it would be a really interesting topic, so that's why I chose Ross Perot. He had a lot of different policies that differed from the traditional Republican Democrat parties. That's what I'm going to talk about, his policies, his run for presidency, and the impact that he left. He was known for having honest principles. He used to be an Eagle Scout, and he built up a lot on that from his principles. According to ontheissues.org, some of his policies, he was pro-choice, he was for the gay marriage, he was a real strong supporter of dealing with drug enforcement, and he wanted to use the military to deal with drug enforcement. He was really liberal on some things, but he was also really conservative on others, so he found a lot of middle ground. He was against NAFTA, and if you don't know what NAFTA is, it stands for the North American Free Trade Agreement, and it was put in place at the time, and it sounded like a good idea. It was supposed to eliminate trade barriers in North America between like Canada and Mexico and the U.S. And it actually ended up just big businesses sent over their business over to like Mexico, and it ended up actually creating a lot of job loss in America. And he actually was quoted for saying that it would cause a giant sucking sound towards Mexico if NAFTA was put into place. His 1992 campaign, he ran as an independent, like I said. He had 19% of the popular vote, and he got a lot of media attention actually, which is really what made him popular, because I think a lot of people were ready for change, ready for like a different candidate, and this was their man. He actually got a lot of media attention on Larry King Live. And according to Answers.com, he won the first debate against George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. He won the first debate, and that was his famous giant sucking sound quote. And he led the polls. He was leading the polls at 39%, but I don't think he could really handle the campaign pressures, because there's a lot that goes into being a politician. And he started to become very paranoid, and he actually thought one of the campaigners that worked for him was a Bush informant, like a spy for George Bush. So he ended up firing him. And then he thought the Republican Party had a computer generized photo of his daughter, like an embarrassing photo. I don't know where he came up with this, but he ended up dropping out of the campaign because of this, because his daughter had a wedding coming up, and he didn't want to embarrass her in front of her wedding. So he ended up dropping, and then he came back in towards the end of it because he didn't want to be known as a quitter, and he didn't nearly have as much popularity. Actually, Bill Clinton picked up most of his supporters. And then in 1996, he ran again. This run wasn't nearly as exciting, but during this run, he actually founded the Reform Party, which is still around today. And he was on Larry King again, and he had a debate against Al Gore, which Al Gore basically tore him a new one. And he only got 8% of the popular vote this time. And his impact, this has actually been one of the strongest showings since 1912, with when Teddy Roosevelt had the Bull Moose Party, the strongest third-party showing since 1912. It really strengthened third parties. People began to look at them more seriously since then. The anti-NAFTA was the biggest thing because thank you, Neil. Because during this, like when he was against this, this was the whole North American thing, and it actually, looking at it today, was actually a bad decision, and it actually did cause a lot of businesses to send their jobs over to Mexico because it's a lot cheaper labor. So actually looking back, he was right about that. And finally, it was a new perspective, a fresh perspective with Ross Perot, and I think that's why a lot of people liked him. And in sharing this information, I hope you learned a little bit about Ross Perot. I thought it was really interesting because he was an unknown man. He was the underdog. Everybody likes underdog stories. Cinderella story. And had things gone his way, could Ross Perot have won the presidency and changed history as a third-party president? Thank you.